G'day everyone, it's been a few weeks but back with another video, and I thought it was time for a little bit of sim racing content. Haven't done too much of that for a little while, and the reason for that has been that just basically my PC was just getting a bit out of date and it wasn't really able to smoothly record any gameplay footage and make a good quality video at the same time, just as sort of games got updated and developed and so on. So I've got a new PC now, so everything should be a lot smoother and looking a lot better. So I thought it was about time to dive into some more sim racing stuff. So I thought I would actually do a video today just about how I've found anyway, get the most out of sim racing as a hobby. So I'm sure that if you're watching this channel, you've got at least a passing interest in it, although I understand that some people may just be here to see the real life stuff, and that's absolutely fine as well. But for those of us that do partake in the hobby, I just wanted to give a few little tips, just sort of what I've found about how to get the most out of it, most enjoyment, satisfaction, that type of stuff. It's more aimed towards people who, maybe sort of just casually dabbling around with it, or people who've just picked it up, or maybe people who've picked it up for a while and necessarily not finding that they're enjoying themselves particularly, and perhaps we can help a little bit in that regard as well. So I guess we'll just kick off into it. So the first thing that I'll mention is exactly how long I've been sim racing, which is around about this long. Yeah, so that is the first racing game that I played, and really you couldn't call that sim racing by a modern definition, driving with the keyboard and so on and so forth. But that being said, some of these early games did teach me some valuable things about racing and how it works, and things that I've even carried forward in today. Simple things like the basics of car setup and sort of checking how your lap is tracking based on markers around the track and braking points and things like that. So it does teach you little bits and pieces, which I've definitely sort of carried forward into now, although it's obviously far less detail than is available to us today. But I think it's important to at least cover off at the beginning of the video here that we need to be able to understand what sim racing is, and almost as a byproduct of that, understanding what it's not. So in terms of what it actually is and how you have to think of it, it is a really fun hobby, basically. Or it can be really fun, it can be really frustrating and irritating, but it's a hobby, it's a pastime, it's something that most people fit in around their jobs and families and other hobbies and things like that. And that's exactly the case for me. There seems to be a little bit of debate that you sort of see around the place. I'm sure there's a few YouTube videos out there on it, sort of comparing it to real racing and saying, is it real motorsport? Is it this? Is it that? It's growing all the time in popularity. It's going to overtake real life motorsport. The answer to all those questions is no. It's not real motorsport. It's a digital representation of real motorsport. It's trying to bring as close as real life motorsport can be into your home, and certain titles are putting more emphasis on either realism or accessibility for everyone, playability, things like that. Each title's trying to offer something slightly different, which is good because it means that there's something out there for everyone. And generally anybody who gets into it in an even semi-serious way sort of finds the title that works for them the best. I guess the one thing to remember, of course, and I actually listened to a really good podcast where they interviewed Marcus Ambrose, who some of you may recall. He was a V8 supercar champion and then went over and raced in NASCAR as well, and he's fairly keen into his sim racing these days, particularly iRacing. He does most of it under an alias, but he is there and around and fairly active. And he did an interview just going through and saying, look, it doesn't have to be 100% true to life. It stands on its own as a hobby and a pastime and everything else. So don't get too hung up on whether or not it perfectly recreates real life, because it doesn't, and it never can. At least not until the point that they've developed technology where they just kind of input all the sensations directly into our brains and make us absolutely think that we're in a real life race car. Until then, it's not going to be anything close to the real sensation of driving a real race car. And even at my very low club level racing that I do, motorsport that I do, even I can tell you that. And I'm just a club guy. So for the pros, it's got to be even more pronounced. So, I mean, every now and again within sim racing, you do run into these guys who will sort of try and compare themselves to pro race drivers and all the rest of it. It's not true. So it's a good thing, especially if you're starting off in sim racing, to understand, what it can do for you and what it can't. There are certain things that it can do, and there are certain things that it just can't do. So it's good to have a clear picture on that. So the first thing that I'll probably cover off in terms of actually getting involved itself, and this is actually a stat that I read somewhere. I've got no idea if it's true or not, but that is that 70% of people that play sim racing titles only race offline, which I thought was... I wouldn't have thought it was anywhere close to that. I would have thought it would have been 50-50 at absolute most. But no, apparently, if the stat's true, 70% of you don't ever race online. They just race offline against AI. And I guess if you're doing that and that's working absolutely fine for you, then great. I was like that for a long time. I used to race entirely offline, and used to play a lot around with R-Factor mods on the original R-Factor and stuff like that, and just poured a huge amount of time into downloading, installing mods, trying them out, playing them, etc. And I had a great time doing that. I lost loads of hours doing that, sunk huge amounts of time into it. But then, of course, in terms of the actual racing, yeah, it can be fun. It can be great fun to just pick up and race at a time of your choosing and a track of your choosing against AI that generally isn't going to run you off the road like a real person might. But I also sort of found that the satisfaction of winning a race or doing well is not the same against AI as it is against a real person, because there's always that kind of thing in the background. Well, maybe if we just turn the AI up more, maybe I had it set too low or whatever. So there's always that in the back of your mind. So while it's enjoyable, it's not an authentic experience, in my mind at the very least, of actually racing against a real person. So that's sort of what got me into the more online side of things, where you actually get a real battle against another living, breathing human being that can make mistakes and has a certain skill level. And of course, branching off from that and racing against real people, there's always a community that builds up around all of these sims. So the first thing that I would do is become active in one of those online communities. So for me, I do most of my racing on iRacing, and there's a Facebook page called iRacing Down Under, where just about everybody gets together, posts up stuff, talks, argues, all the normal stuff. But that's where all the leagues and competitions get advertised, and so you know what's going on, and you get to know people who are also active and around it, and really build up that I guess friendship group with people that share the same hobby as you do. So it's always a lot better. It's sort of like if you're into RC cars, going out there and playing on your own, driving the thing around on the beach or something by yourself, versus getting together with a whole bunch of people and having a bit of a race or whatever. It's the kind of thing, just improves it a whole lot by having people and that you can discuss things with. And of course, it's always good to get sort of hints and tips that you can pick up off people as well to improve your own skills. So that's definitely one tip that I'd give. The second one would be to actually join a league. Now, the reason that I say that is because most of the most of the sort of pick up and play in iRacing, they're called official races, but I know just about every sim racing title has public lobbies that you can jump into, and generally the racing in there is shit. So there's no consequences. You're just going in there against a bunch of randoms who will just ram you off the track. And even in iRacing and Assetto Corsa Competizione, where they have safety ratings and things like that they're bringing in, so drivers do actually get penalised for making contact with other cars and everything like that. You still find that element of disappointing behaviour, let's say. So your racing experience is not really guaranteed to be a positive one, and it can be very frustrating. But when you're racing in a league, you tend to find that it's a little bit different because it's an organised competition. It's generally organised by a person or several people. And the people that are racing in there, they race against each other every week. So if somebody does something stupid to you, it's not like they're never going to see you again. They know they have to race you again next week. And not only that, you've got the rate. You generally got some sort of admin or race control or set of rules or whatever that will actually be able to assess incidents on their merit and penalise people for bad behaviour. So you generally find that it's a lot better. And not only that, it really does kind of just branch off the point I made earlier on about building up that social group within the hobby itself. So you're racing against the same guys every week. You get to know them, they get to know you. The racing's generally a lot cleaner because you get to sort of understand how the various individuals within that competition drive. And there's a couple of leagues that I do fairly regularly. One of them I run, but another one I'm just a driver in. So and I've found that to be by far the absolute best way to go racing and really enjoy it. And quite often these league races, they have broadcast set up as well, so you can watch it all back on YouTube afterwards, and some of them have commentary and really professional looking overlays and things like that. So it's just something that adds another dimension to what you're doing. So that's definitely a tip that I'd give as well, is go find yourself a league that runs a sort of car that you're interested in, and go get involved. So from there, the logical branch off from that point is a team. And there are several, like leagues, where there are super serious ones and much more casual and social ones and everything in between. Teams are the same. You'll get teams that run together in various events. So it could be, for example, if you're racing the Le Mans 24 hour and you need 4 drivers per car or whatever, you'll have 4 of you together running that car. Or it could be something more like touring cars or Formula One, where you've just got teammates out on the track there with you. But either way, you'll generally find that having a group of people around that can help you out and that you can help, and provided you get on well with them and they're sort of looking for the same experience out of it that you are, you will just generally find that they can actually become really close mates, and that you have an absolute blast. Like just recently, the iRacing Daytona 24 hour was on. I wasn't actually driving in that, but I did just hang around in the voice chat with a few of my teammates and watch the race and chatted to them and all the rest of it. And it was really good, really fun period while I was there. I was in there for a couple of hours just talking to them, and that was just something to do because I just didn't have anything else to do. So I thought I'd jump in and have a chat with those guys. So and that just adds yet another dimension to it. So, and I suppose, like I was saying, there are all different types of teams. There are some that are very serious about what they do and very professional, and there are others that are a little bit more casual. So for me personally, I've got a full-time job, also got a family, also got other hobbies, real life motorsport. I like to go camping, I like to go to the beach. There's loads of different stuff that I like to do. So the sim racing sort of fits in around that. And the team that I'm with, JP SimShed, although they've got quite a few actual paying sponsors, and they're quite serious about what they do when they're on the track, they also understand that everybody's got a life outside. And if I was to ring up and say, hey, I'm not going to be around for 6 months because I'm going on a trip around Europe, that'd be absolutely fine. I'd still have a job when I got back, or have a role in the team when I got back. So, and that wouldn't be the case for everyone. So for me, that works out perfectly well. Their approach to racing is the same. The only real expectation they have on me is if you're going to jump in and do a race, especially a big event, you make sure that you're well prepared, and that's absolutely fine by me because that's normally how I go about things anyway. So it's all about finding a fit for you. And once again, you've got that social group there. You've also got guys who can help you out. People share setups and give you tips and things like that, especially if you're relatively new to it. So that can definitely help your level of enjoyment as well. And also, when you do have a success, there's a group of people there to help celebrate it with you, which always makes it a little bit nicer, a little bit more significant. So highly recommend, once you get your feet under the table a little bit, go out there and see if there's a team willing to take you on, because it's well worth it. Alright, so the last point that I would make is that this whole hobby of sim racing has also developed a whole lot of offshoot. It's almost like a cottage industry that's popped up around it. There are so many little different things that people are doing now to do with sim racing. Some people are making equipment, so steering wheels, pedals, shifters, seats, frames, monitors, well, monitor stands, I guess, and things like that. There are people who are involved in the broadcasting, so there's commentators and people who are doing the production and doing the live streaming and everything like that. There are people who are out there doing like high quality still screenshots, like with really in-depth Photoshop techniques. There are people that are doing really high-class liveries for cars, paint schemes. There are people who are doing promotional videos and music videos and stuff like that, and people who are just doing YouTube stuff like what I'm doing. And there's a lot of people who are doing that at a much bigger level than I am. So there's a lot of other little bits and pieces that you can do outside of the actual physical act of driving. And that's something as well which can help really keep your interest up. Even if you go through a period where you kind of like, I've been putting a lot of effort into driving, I'm a bit tired, I don't really want to do it for a couple of weeks, you've still got something else that you can pick up and go on with, even if you don't feel like physically jumping in and driving. So, and the more involved that you are with the community, the more of those things and the more of those opportunities and the more of those different things, the stuff that you may not have even thought of that you're able to go and do with sim racing, it will present themselves. So you've got that whole, I guess, a whole world within it that's just sitting there sort of waiting to be explored in terms of anything else that may catch your interest. So highly recommend that you go explore something like that as well, because certainly it's helped me out, and there's a lot of people that actually really enjoy doing stuff other than the actual physical act of driving. So anyway, those are a few tips to hopefully help you guys get the most out of your sim racing experience. If you guys have got any other tips or anything I haven't covered, down below, please just leave us a comment, and I'll take a look at it for certain. Maybe even be able to make another video out of all the feedback we get. Don't know. So that's all from me today. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time. Goodbye.